What was Wilson like when you were here?
Wilson, when I was here, was a school that was quite well known in the area and ranked as a very good high school. I enjoyed high school. I hated junior high school. I would have quit if I could, but I loved high school. And actually, I cried when we were graduating. I knew I was going to college, but I didn't want to leave Wilson and all my friends. So it was really a very nice 3 years for me.
What was the building like? Was it?
The building was a little run down. It needed some refurbishing, but all the space was used. The classes were fairly large, and we had a lot of good teachers.
What were the teachers like mostly? Were they male, female, like?
It was the first time I had ever had men for teachers. I had one who was my homeroom teacher, and he was very, very nice. I had another, because I was the chemistry assistant, lab assistant, and then I had a third one who taught us driving, and that was pretty exciting. But the rest, as I remember, were women that I had.
Was it about the driving? Was there like a whole class devoted to driving?
Yeah, a whole semester. Yeah.
What was it like as a teenage girl being like in a city school? Just what was it like for girls?
I think most everybody loved being here. I mean, we knew some folks because obviously we'd come from the same junior high school, as it was called then, and some of us had actually gone from elementary school to junior high to Wilson. So there were cliques. There were cliques. There were sororities here. I never belonged to one, but there were sororities here.
Girls versus boys, like this was probably before Title IX came out. So like, what sports were there?
I was in a lot of sports. I love sports. So, and actually I was in the championship hockey team. And the only thing I couldn't stand, and I think it was probably junior high school rather than high school, was gymnastics. I thought I was going to break my neck. But other than that, I played everything. Softball, even played basketball. I played badminton, I played hockey, most everything. We didn't have a swimming pool here though, so I didn't do any swimming.
That's great. What were the like fashion trends, or like was there any like slang terms that you used?
We had, that was the time of these poodle skirts and bobby socks. At proms, oh my God, you wore these huge Kremlin skirts, you know. They stuck out all over and inched. Everybody wore saddle shoes pretty much. And let me think now. Oh, the guys had DAs. Do you know what those are?
Yeah. Just
the ducks behind. And their hair went to the back. And a lot of flat tops. You don't see those anymore, but they were very, very popular with the boys.
What about like slang? Was there any popular words or anything like that?
Anywho, that was one of them. Yeah, there was slang. I don't know that I remember much of it, but I think every group had their own little language.
From what you can tell right now, like just how, in general, how has Wilson changed?
Oh, I think probably the curriculum is probably very different, and probably a lot more homework, and I hope more papers, because that's what you're going to be doing in college.
So were there like APs and honors
Oh, yes.
classes?
Yeah, and you know, the SATs, I don't know that they're that popular anymore, but you had to take them, and the pre-SATs before that. And it was a very competitive school.
What classes were you taking?
Well, you know, when I was in high school, this is something interesting that I don't believe they have anymore. There were different tracks, so that one of my friends wanted to be a hairdresser, so she was not in the collegiate track. She went to Bell Vocational School from junior high to learn business. And she owned her own shop eventually and was very successful. But there was a tenure track and a vocational track then. And you decided, or your parents perhaps, I don't know, decided which track you might go into.
So you choose a career and then they tell you which
Yes.
way to go, like what classes.
Yeah. So you take languages, you take science, you take English, you take history, social studies, the usual stuff.
What language did you take?
French and Latin. I took Latin too.
That's awesome. Did you have a good experience at school?
I did. I did. I have very good experience here, and I thought I learned a lot to help me get into college.
What was an average day like?
Average day, you go to homeroom first, and then everybody kind of spreads out to whatever classes they might have. I ended up with an English teacher named Miss Best, who was rather difficult. And I had her for 2 out of 3 years. I couldn't figure out why, but I had her, and I remember her room faced the field, and in the afternoons, the boys were playing football or, you know, having some workouts, and the windows were open, and I sat next on the end, on the aisle, and she'd call your name, and you had to stand up and answer the question. Well, one day I couldn't even hear what she asked me because of all the noise and the open windows outside. So she was not happy with me that day. I had no trouble with any of the teachers. I thought they were a lot smarter than me. And I thought I learned a lot here. I was very happy at Wilson.
Who are your favorite teachers?
I liked my French teacher. I believe her name was Miss Stevens. I had one teacher for history. She was pretty good, but the first day she got on the blackboard and wrote her name, and it went on and on and on, and I still remember it was Elizabeth Tandy Ford Gosling. She wanted everybody to know her full name. Let me see now. Biology, I like biology. I love social studies. There was, the science teacher was Miss Stroh-Snyder. I don't think she's related to the hardware store. Miss Almquist was a very good teacher. I had her, I believe, for social studies. And actually, she just passed away this year, so she lived a good long life. And the principal would always be around. He'd be roaming the halls. He was pretty friendly.
So, do you have any just random memories here, good or bad, that happened to you? Just like, can you share some?
Well, I remember graduation because my father had died when I was 10, so it was going to be my mother. One of my sisters was teaching in Wales, so she wasn't around. So my cousin from Boston came down for the graduation, and that was kind of fun. He was one of my favorite cousins. And it was a beautiful day. It was outside on the field, and it was a very fun time for me. I enjoyed that. The dances were kind of fun. Of course, at first, the guys are on this side and the girls are on that side, and nobody knows who to talk to. But they were fun, and you got to meet some new folks that you might not talk to ordinarily. We had an interesting group of students here. When I was here, I would say there were very few black children here. And, but there was a large, well, let's say 30%, a large contingent of Jewish kids. So I was very comfortable with these folks. They were very friendly, and you know, nobody made any issue about what people were, but we were talking about that at our reunion, how there was a pretty large group of Jewish folks. I don't happen to be Jewish, but I have a lot of Jewish friends.
What was the main culture like? Were there like the separate like cliques? And stuff?
Yeah, there were definitely cliques. I happened to be real good friends with a bunch of students here because at the time I was still in Scouts, Girl Scouts, so I had that group of friends. And I also had joined, when I was in junior high, something called Job's Daughters. It was like the woman's side of the Eastern Star. You know, the boys were called D. Malay, and then they became Masons. And the girls were in this group, and then if they wanted to go on, they became Eastern Star. That was the women's side. And we had dances on Saturday night, and we went to other, what they called Bethels, places where they had meetings all over the city in Maryland, D.C., and it was fun. So I had that group of friends too. So I was not in a clique per se, because I already had a lot of friends that were at the school that I'd known from other places.
What were the kinds of extracurriculars that were available?
A lot of sports. Our games, as I remember it, were after school, not at night, like so many of them are, in Maryland anyway. It was very active. There was a marching band, there was a symphony orchestra here, a lot of musical things going on. And of course there are all the cheerleaders and the pom-pom girls, and they always had, every year, Miss Congeniality, most likely to succeed, all of that stuff. So I think it was a typical high school for the times.
So I see you have a yearbook.
Yeah, I brought my yearbook. We just had a reunion almost 2 years ago.
Is there
And
anything?
want to see our hockey group? There we are. And let me see, I'm in here someplace. That's me right there.
That's really cool.
Yeah, this was my neighbor. He was playing golf. We had some interesting clubs, like, I don't know if they still have them anymore. They were service clubs for the most part, like Y-Teens. I'm sure you don't have that anymore. I belonged to that. I belonged to like 3 or 4 different things. Clubs, as they called them. Yeah, very much so.
That's good.
I mean, we didn't feel like we were being cheated out of certain things because the boys were playing